The day we got there, it was sunny and beautiful, and North Dakota is beautiful and has geography, which I did not know. It has hills and dales and a few trees. And so we went up there, essentially because we were invited, and we is Linda Middleton Hill and myself. Linda Middleton Hill is our Director of Religious Exploration. And what happened was, through Standing on the Side of Love, we got an invitation from Chief Arville, who asked for clergy and lay leaders to come up for a day of prayer. And I thought, well, I'll think about that later. And then I got a text from Linda, who said, why don't we go do this? And Linda had already been up there before, so she knew a little bit about what she was getting into. And I said, oh, okay. I have to check with the board first, and then I did, and the board said, you should go. And so, lacking any further excuses, we went. But effectively, I think we went because we felt called, and we felt sent, and we felt invited to go up there. And I think you heard a lot about Standing Rock last week. I don't want to rehash anything, but the issues were about sovereign nationhood, about a history of domination, a culture of dominance, and protecting the water. And it was a very crucial distinction between protest and protection. Protection is an affirmation. Protest is something that is a negation. And the people up there wanted to not fight the paradigm of dominance with an ethic of dominance. They wanted to fight the paradigm of, fight is not even the right word. They wanted to create an alternative way of living and being that was based on affirmation, a new way. And that was why they chose to be water protectors. So we also went up there because, there we are. This is the Interfaith Hut, yurt. No one knows how the yurt got built. This is another thing. Like, the yurt became built, and they said, Interfaith, this is your yurt. And I don't even know who they is at this point. Like, stuff just happens up there, and it became the Interfaith Yurt, and largely it became the Standing on the Side of Love Yurt. Linda spent one morning welcoming people into the yurt as her sort of service for the day. Also, it was warm in the yurt, so.
And when he says warm, it means that it was slightly above freezing.
Yeah. So, and then, Ricky, go ahead. Here's the water protector, Mini Wachoni, water is life. Every now and then you'll hear just breaking out in different parts of the camp, drums and prayers going on, and then someone shouts Mini Wachoni, and everyone within earshot shouts it out too, and they shout water is life, and that happens. Go ahead, Ricky. So another reason why we went up there is because people were being treated terribly by, in my name, by my government. Now, the people who were up there are being paid by other folks. And my words for the folks on the other side of the cordon was they were not North Dakota police, they were not hired on Wisconsin police. I just called them DAPL cops. That seemed to be the most accurate characterization of them. And in fact, many of the police that were originally asked to go up there and paid to go up there decided after they had seen what was going on to leave. So that's when we saw that, there was little question that something had to be done, and then the invitation came, and how can you refuse? So that's why we went. Now, what did we find? Ricky, if you'll switch. We found 2,000 U.S. military veterans who responded to a call that went out through their collegial networks. And between the clergy and the veterans, we doubled the size of the camp easily, probably close to triple the size of the camp. And I cannot express to you how crucially important it was for those veterans to be there, both from a practical point of view, from sheer numbers, but also a nationally symbolic point of view, and also a very personally symbolic point of view, which I'll tell you more about in a little bit. We also found that it was pretty messy up there, much like today's service. It was pretty messy, and not everybody up there came for the right reasons. I mean, we're all human beings up there. There were some people who were there for ego reasons, but everybody counted. Even the people who were there for the wrong reasons and were behaving somewhat in a way that made me uncomfortable were useful and enlisted and asked to serve. So all of us in our imperfections were there. There was some cultural misappropriation going on, as you could well imagine. And at one point, a young Native woman, as we were going out to do a ritual that we'd been asked to do by the elders, she was shouting just into the ether, "Stop appropriating, stop appropriating." With justification, she was shouting this, ample justification. But it was this weird space, because you're like, yes, and I thank you for saying this, because I'm a little uncomfortable with some of the what seems to be appropriation going on here. And you seem to be feeling that as well, and I'm glad you're saying something. And also, all these people who are misappropriating are helping. So it wasn't a black or white situation, and there was a lot of discomfort and some gray area, and the ethic of prayerfulness just swept everybody up in it and became, in the end, quite effective. So I wanted Linda to be up here with me, not just to stand next to me for support, or to block the wind like we were doing up in North Dakota.
That was before the picture you saw. We were together.
Yes. And later you could ask her for some tips on sledding. But I want to know from Linda's point of view, what was the most amazing or profound event that you participated in or witnessed while you were at camp?
So I did write things down, and we'll get it going. So when I was there initially in the beginning of November was to answer another call that went out to the interfaith community, and I joined other religious educators from the UU tradition all over the U.S., and we met there with other clergy and laity. And so when we were there, we were the front lines, if you will, which is the blocking of a bridge. There was law enforcement, there were riot lines, and it was tense, incredibly tense. So while we were there this next time, and I don't know if there's while we were there with Ron, what we witnessed were law enforcement driving away. They were driving up this hill, covered in snow, and leaving this line where they had put in concrete barricades, barbed wire, were shooting rubber bullets at anybody who came their way. But they'd loaded up in their cars and they were leaving, and they were driving away from the hill. So we were there watching the last few law enforcement and private military contractors leaving the area and leaving that line in the sand that was drawn. And that was powerful. It was powerful to watch prayer and peace and justice prevail there in a physical sense. So at that moment, the freedom from the grasp of money and the grasp of control and that grasp of domination and watching that occur was profound. Standing in the prayer hoop, which is this picture here. So thousands of people holding hands encircling the entire camp is what's occurring. And this is our tiny little section. As we're standing there, right after this picture was taken, people were coming around saying, they didn't approve the permit. They didn't approve the permit. And everybody's standing there going, what? And then you kind of feel it. And then you can see as people connect with what's happening, arms go up and people cheering. and everybody having this moment of joy. I mean, thousands of people encircling the entire camp in prayer, having this moment of profound joy and connection with one another, and feeling that shock and being witness to everybody coming together, and then watching everybody go, and we still have to cook meals, and there's still work to do, and moving on.
And one more thing, I want to know what your takeaway was. What do you bring back?
So what I bring back is the power of contributions, small, peaceful, and targeted. This congregation supported us going. And part of our mission was we were asked to show up, and we did. And we did that with the support of our communities. And we did that to bring this message out. And it's important that we showed up at the request and under control of the community that was affected. We didn't go there to run our agenda. We went there to provide support as allies. We went to stand in the background and support those who needed support at their request. Being able to see so many people from all over the world, I mean, all over the world. People are showing up in North Dakota, like rural North Dakota. And they're responding with their time. People who have time that can go. People are responding with their talents. People are sending in financial contributions, all of this. So it's that power of community and these small actions by thousands and millions of people around the world. So it's the takeaway that all of these can lead to peace and prayer and the profound effect that occurred.
Thank you. So the most, I'll answer those same questions. The most profound thing that I participated in was this. Can you actually dim a couple more lights? Because it's kind of a dim picture there. This is the tail end of the water ritual. The water ritual, they did this every day. And of course, when we were there, there were a lot more people. There were, a huge amount of people. And it starts off, another thing that we have in common with camp is they had a sacred fire. And we have our sacred fire. We obviously have our sacred water. And of course, sacred water, water was sacred there. But you start off, the fire is where all the prayers begin and where all the prayers happen. And that's where the Sunday gathering of clergy came and prayed. And on Sunday, later that day, we got the news and we celebrated. The next day, we woke up bright and early to participate in the water ceremony, which they did every day that they were there. And it starts off with prayers and the notion that the women are the water carriers, women or people with women's spirits in their body are the water carriers and that water handlers. And so we gathered around the fire in a big circle and sang some songs. And then they gave us all Dixie cups. And, and then the women came around and poured water into all of our cups. And we drank the water. And then we went down to the river to pray. And again, on the way down to the river, the women go in front. So all the women gathered at the front, a couple hundred women, all the men, a couple hundred men gathered at the back. And we all went down. And that's when these songs started to bubble up. Some of them that we've been singing today started to bubble up, and I would look over, and there'd be, I'd be surrounded by men, and there'd be, like a dude with a hipster beard looking at me, and just with so much joy in his eyes, singing, and we were like connecting through the song, and suddenly I'm finding myself quite connected to all these people that were taking part in this ritual, and it's a mix of nations, right? A mix of races and dispositions and occupations, and we're all going down here together. And we get to this riverside, and there's a bank that goes down, and then it flattens out, and then there's the river. So it's snowy and freezing. So at this point, the leaders say, okay, now it's the men's turn to protect the women as they make their way down to the river. So all the men line up in two rows, so according down to the river. And we lined up, and I don't know where no direction came, but everyone just kind of naturally assumed this position because our job was literally to help the women get to the water. And then, one by one, each woman came down that stairway, that hill, and the men, or people with men's spirits, assisted the women as they came down. And I heard more than one testimony from a woman afterwards about how they had not been handled by men well in their life. But there was this moment where they would touch your hand as though it was a banister on the way down to the river and look you in the eye. And you were occasionally singing songs, or sometimes there would be a pause and somebody would have forgotten their mittens, and so you would cover their hands up with your mittens and hold on to them for a little while, and everyone would just breathe together. And I looked around, and there was a bunch of vets around me. Like, there were hipster beards and vet beards around me. And there was a mix of them, and I looked around, and lesson for me was that if I had looked at that vet beard dude before I went up there, that guy looks to me like somebody who supported somebody that I did not want to win the election. But he was right next to me, and he was crying. And the guy across from me was crying. And all those gentlemen up and down the hill were crying. The women coming down had tears in their eyes. I was weeping. And this took, that moment happened for about five minutes, which is a long time to cry when it's 5 degrees outside. But the tears froze, but the heart stayed warm, and the procession continued for about an hour. And then they said, now it's the women's turn to protect the men. So everyone who is a woman or has woman's spirit, do the same thing. And so I got to go up with the men, and we, one by one, walked all the way down the hill, and you come down the hill, and at some point, there's sweetgrass and sage all just being carried on the wind, and somebody had a big bag of tobacco, which is their sort of, in the same way that we do an offering, it's an embodied ritual offering into, for them, it's about tobacco, and so we took a little pinch of tobacco and walked down, and somebody, you see you're kneeling there, and they had somebody there to help you kneel. I mean, you were assisted and were assisting and serving every step of the way. And it was a profoundly moving experience. Yeah, it was freaking cool. And just so full in your heart. And you walked up and you walked out of that ritual and you felt like you were family with all those people, and the songs would come and go, and the sweet grass and sage would come and go. That was the most profound experience to me. And that in some ways is my takeaway. I mean, we can't forget that at some level, this really was just about stopping a pipeline from going through some really important water that was crucial to people in that area being alive, right? At some point, it really kind of is just about that. But there was so much more going on that was called out because of that protection. This was, to my way of thinking, a new paradigm that is seeking articulation, a new zeitgeist that is seeking emergence, that we have seen a couple of times before rise up and not quite get enough legs and so fall down. We saw it in Occupy Wall Street. We saw this start to happen. And there was good and bad, and it kind of fell down. And I think we've seen it one other time. I can't remember what it was, but we're seeing it again. It's an iteration of what's happening in the Arab Spring that rose up and then kind of fell down. It takes some revision as we go along. We can't imagine the new paradigm will emerge whole cloth, ready to roll. it takes work to manufacture, and it takes work to build. And this was the latest iteration of what the new paradigm is. And to me right now, the words that are resonating are: we are moving from a paradigm of dominance, which has lasted for many centuries now, probably, maybe, I don't know, maybe forever. So that makes our job even harder. The new paradigm is not one of dominance, but one of service. And it was amazing to just feel that. And it's not like I was waiting on people all day long, but my attitude was one of service. And if you asked for help, I was going to help. That's just what everyone was doing. And when you do that, you find yourself very much connected to each other, based on values, an ethic of service, I think that's my description of the new paradigm that is trying to emerge. And we will have opportunities to usher that new paradigm in. We are already doing that in our own sort of way here at MVUU. We really do have a lot in common with what was going on at Standing Rock, in the sense that we have things that are symbols that are sacred to us, values that we gather around, and an attitude of service that pervades this place. Now, we can do better at all of them. We could take all of them deeper. And I can promise you that if we do, it felt amazing to be up there. It was frigid cold. And I didn't eat one day. Like, I don't think we ate. We did not eat on Sunday. And I was standing on ice for 2 or 3 hours, which I did not know this, but if you stand on ice, it gets really cold. I don't know, I thought shoes would stop it. But it did for about a half an hour, and then it was really cold. And so then you're doing the dance like this. So it was not comfortable, and it doesn't have to be. And maybe it shouldn't be. And maybe it can't be. But it was amazing. And I want to bring that here. I want you all to have the opportunity to feel that. So some things, what can we do? If you bank with any of these people, stop it. I'll post on Facebook later contact information for these people. So even if you are wise enough not to bank with any of these people, you could write them letters and tell them to stop it, because the pipeline is stopped for now, but it's already been in a legal tussle. And when the new administration comes in, I would say all bets are off. However, January 1st is a date at which the investors have the opportunity to pull out. The black snake will die without money. So this is something very concrete that you can do. Otherwise, as we move forward, we're going to begin thinking a lot about sanctuary here in the borderlands and expanding the concept of sanctuary beyond just housing people. By the way, I found out this week that this church, that we are counted as a church that has experience with sanctuary, because many of us went down and sat with Rosa and helped out at Southside when Rosa was in sanctuary there. So we're sort of counted in that fold already, which was both an honor and a surprise to hear a little bit. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to house somebody in a facility, but it means we're playing with this concept of sanctuary, and I see it as a concept that is based on service to other humans. So we will do our work here. We will see what can be done to usher in and to foster and to birth this new paradigm, because it's amazing, and it's good, and it's just, and it's creative and life-giving.